Before we dive into the text, John 15, I wanted to let you know something happened on Easter Sunday. We're going to have some special guests in house, a busload of them. We're going to have the Metropolitan Detroit Youth Chorus joining us that Sunday morning. They're making their way back to Detroit from Florida. And I mean, Heath, Ohio, if I'm ever in need of a pit stop, it's a good place. So they're going to pull in Easter Sunday. And so I know for some of you there's traditions, there's things Easter already entails. What they're going to do is during service, they're going to share a song or two. And then immediately following service, they're going to just rock it out. They're going to sing and perform for all of us. And we'll have a meal following that. So for you, there's a couple options. There is just come to service as you normally would and get a brief chance to hear a song or two from them. If you don't have a time issue on Easter Sunday, you're able to stay and entertain them and engage with them, please do. And if you don't have lunch plans, stay. We're going to have an open taco bar. Tacos on Easter Sunday. I mean, that's a great way to do it. But it'll give us a chance to talk with them, meet them. And speaking of meeting them, so there's your options. Come as you normally would, stay and hear a song, or stay even longer and eat some tacos along with them. But when's the last time you had to make an introduction to someone? The last time where you had to introduce yourself? Okay, you know that Easter Sunday we're going to be making introductions with some of these kids. And I'm going to say a phrase. And some of you, you're just going to want to crawl under your chair. And some of you are about to get excited, okay? Here's the phrase. We're going to go around the room. We're all going to introduce ourselves and say something interesting about each other. And some of you are like, where's the news? Kill me now. This is terrible. That's a terrible joke. I shouldn't have said that. Okay, anyway. But some of you, there's this, I don't want to talk about me. I don't want to introduce. I don't want to do these things. And some of you are like, that sounds fun. You know, our personalities are different. And there's different ways of introducing. There's terrible ways of introducing. I just came across this recently. Apparently there's people that they cannonball introductions. And you know what a cannonball is in the term of a pool. You run in and you splash. And the term is now there's people that cannonball. They just come in full force and just splash everywhere. Another introduction term I learned, and I find it hilarious, it's called the reverse pickpocket. You ever been mid-sentence with someone and all of a sudden you're holding their card and you have no idea how you got it? It's the reverse pickpocket. You're like, where did this come from? Okay? There's different ways of introducing each other. And some of us, we cringe at the thought. How many of you have kind of a social anxiety? How many of you? See, you don't. You're lying. Because the ones that when I said that question, they just kind of curled up even more. Those of you that raised your hand, no, you don't. The real ones just tried, how can I get behind my chair? Okay? But what we're doing in John 15, we are at the 7th I am statement. And the reason I'm talking introductions, Jesus has spent 15 chapters. He is kind of introducing himself not only to the world, but to his disciples with these I am statements. Okay? And some of you have canned responses. Like when you know you are in the business world or you have to go through this enough, you already have a canned response. Okay? Just, I'm Rob and I'm here because there's food. So, nice to meet you. I mean, some of you become lifeless as you introduced, okay? And then some of you are title people. You know, the second you're introduced, you just want to throw your title out there. You know, you want to throw your title out there. But different ways of introducing. But Jesus goes through these I am statements, and we're on the 7th one today, but we've walked through the text of John, and he's introducing himself by saying, I am the bread of life. And you'd go, come again? He says, I am the light of the world. Okay. I am the door. I am the gate to the sheep pen. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And finally, the 7th one in chapter 15, he's going to say, I am the true vine. And as he's gone through these introductions in John, some people have drawn closer. Hey, tell me more. And some people are like, all right, I'm out. This guy's weird. I don't want to talk to this guy. And this is kind of what we've gone through. But from the very beginning of these I am statements, I said you guys were going to see this slide all the way through. And here it is. It's when Jesus makes the I am statement, there's an I will commitment that has to happen in our end. Okay? And each time Jesus says something, he says, I am the bread of life. You know, an I will commitment for us would be, well, if we want to live, we should probably feast on him. You see what I'm saying? There's a commitment we need to make. And when Jesus says, I am the true vine, the commitment from us is the title of this sermon, and that is abide. That's abide. Some of you, as we get into the text, you are not going to see the word abide at all. You're going to see the word remain. The NLT, which, by the way, if you didn't know, whenever text is on the screen, it's through the NLT. The NLT has remain, but I'm just going to keep saying abide. And here's why. And maybe this is a Rob thing, but when I think of remain, I think of leftovers. Hey, what's for dinner? Whatever remains. But when I think abide, I think this is this constant choice to hold on. This constant, I have made a decision, I want to stay put. And so the definition of abide is to remain or to stay. And so hopefully that context, it isn't leftovers, but it is, I want to be here, I want to be present in this place. Okay, and so that commitment, I will abide, I want to give you a definition to abide, second half of the sermon. Okay, so I'm going to use the term, be like, okay, what are we talking about? But I want Jesus to define it. You know, because we could say it means remain, it means stay. I think Jesus defines it in the text, and it's a beautiful definition that I hope you guys will enjoy as much as me. If not, I'm just going to be the guy smiling, enjoying what Jesus says. But here we go, we're getting into the text, John 15. I will have the text on the screen if you're not able to get to it. And we'll be going through 17 verses this morning. Coming into the text, Jesus says, I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. He prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the message I have given you. Remain in me, abide in me, and I will abide in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you abide in me. I don't like verse 2. Like, Rob, it's the Bible. Let me process something. Is it okay if we process something here? I don't like verse 2. And when you are reading the Bible and you have a problem with a verse, one of two things is happening. You are being convicted, okay? Or for some reason you are conflicted. Convicted, the Holy Spirit is poking you, saying, hey, pay attention. Conflicted is on us and probably our lack of understanding. Walking through this for the longest time, I had a conflict with this verse, and if you guys can see it, he cuts off every branch of mine. Some of your translations says he cuts off those in me. I'm conflicted with that. Because as I read through my text, I know what? Those that belong to him remain with him, stay with him. So that tells me I have to dig a little bit deeper. Let me take you through my process real quick. When I'm reading a text and I have trouble with it, I will immediately open up to some other translations. And as I'm reading through translations, NLT is one of the few that says cut off, some says take away. And then I'm getting deep on my translation search because I get to the Passion Translation. The Passion Translation is kind of like that kooky cousin that you only come to advice when everyone else is, you feel like, off the rocker. And the Passion Translation, some of you may love the Passion Translation. You're also that kooky relative, okay? The Passion Translation, it says he lifts up every branch. And I go, oh, well, that's a different perspective. Why is that one lifting up and the rest are kind of taking away, cutting off? Then I go and I dig a little bit deeper into the Greek, the original language. Mind you, I am not a Greek guy. I have to rely on Greek guys to understand my Greek, if you're with me there. And so I've forever struggled with this verse. Why would Jesus say cut off to those that are in him? Everything theologically says those that are in him, he protects, he cares for. And now I've got my crazy cousin, the Passion Translation, saying lifts up. I go, what are we talking about here? Let me bring up the Greek here. The Greek is airo, which means to lift up, to take up, to raise, or remove. This word is used 101 times in our Bibles in the Greek. Interestingly enough, 100 of those times it is not translated cut. Just one time. Can you guess where that time is? Please tell me you're paying attention. Verse 2 of chapter 15. Let me show you some other places where this same word is used as we've walked through John. Okay, I'm working through my struggle here, so when you come to a section of text, I want you to see how I process so you guys can. Because sometimes the text you're struggling with is God wants you to struggle. He wants to stir in your heart. He wants to convict you on something. But sometimes the way we're receiving, we're in conflict with the rest of the text. So I'm processing through this. Am I convicted or conflicted? I'm feeling conflicted here. Now look, I'm going to bring up the word arrow in other sections of John. From John 15:2, he arrow every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. Does that mean cut off, or does it mean lift up, take up, raise, remove? And then, let me read this verse to you, John 5:8. Jesus told him, the lame man, stand up, arrow your mat, and walk. I think that means lift up, right? Okay. John 11:39, speaking to where Lazarus is in the grave. Jesus told them, arrow the stone aside. Move the stone. Take up your mat. Are you seeing how this word is used? All right? Now we need to understand the culture, okay? If I take a verse from a biblical culture and try and put it in my place, odds are I'm going to miss something. When you guys think of every branch of a vineyard, how many of you have seen vineyards here in the States or maybe in Europe? Okay, what do you see when you see a vineyard? Nice rows. We've got trellises. I mean, it looks so delicate. It looks so nice. I want to show you what a grapevine would look like in biblical times. It looks like a weed. It looks like something I forgot to cut out. See, now, what would happen, it still happens in some of the Middle Eastern countries today, the vines were just left on the ground. There was no trellis system or support system as you would see in Napa Valley or Tuscany, you fancy people. But the vines were just left on the ground. And then the vine dresser, the one that would care for the vine, as they saw fruit produced, guess what they would do? They would cut it off. No. What does arrows tell us? They would lift it up. They would prop it up. Because a fruit just sitting on the ground, it ain't a squash, it ain't a pumpkin. It needs to be lifted up for it to grow. And so the vine dresser would come to that plant and maybe stack some rocks, maybe set a branch of some sort up there to lift it higher up, to lift that fruit up off the ground. We're going to use the word propped. For those of you that have got your bulletins and you see that there's 3 words that start with P, we're going to use the word propped up. When Jesus sees the fruit of our lives, does he want it just to lie and languish and rot? No, he wants to prop it up. He wants to lift it up. He wants it to grow and be bountiful. When he sees this struggle, some of us, when we read 2, we imagine ourselves and going, there is times in my life I have not been fruitful. There is times in my life I struggle. And to read that verse and think, oh, so I'm getting cut off and thrown away, that's going to come later, but it's in a separate context. Listen, if you are in Christ, Christ is going to work with you to produce fruit. God wants fruit. He is not going to look at your performance metrics and go, nah, let's kick him out. It's based on his work, his continual work. And here's the thing. Let's not be fruit shopping in faith. Let's not be looking around and checking out the other fruit. Let's just be plugged in to the vine and allowing God to work through us. What does it mean to be propped up? What does it mean to be propped up? It's those times when, have you ever had, I'm going to say this and some of you are like, well, I think he's crazy. Have you ever had those times in those certain days when God gave a ray of sunlight just for you? When you were in a dark place, and it may have been a decent day outside, but it was all clouds inside, and you just weren't feeling right, and then all of a sudden, it was like the ray of sunlight just came right to you. Good Lord's propping up his fruit. Have you ever had those times where you're struggling and just, I don't feel right, I don't think things are going this way, and then all of a sudden, you get hit with maybe it's a verse that comes to mind. Or maybe it's just, you can't do anything but sing a song. You ever had that point in your life when there's one of our worship songs that just gets stuck in your head? And it just kind of reverberates through your soul. It's the Lord propping you up. It's the Lord lifting you up. And guys, this has been going on forever. We look at David as the psalmist in Psalm 3. He says, "Thou, O Lord," you guys are going to hear the song in your head. "Thou, O Lord, are a shield about me. You're my glory." Fill in the blank. What does he say next? "You're the lifter of my head." And I don't know if you guys have you guys ever just had a rotten day and then all of a sudden you just feel like it just breaks? And just all of a sudden there's something happens and it brings a smile to your face. Do you realize that God knows where you're at and he is reaching through and he's just lifting that head? You know, we joke because we can push people's mouths to the corners and make them smile. I think God started that joke. I think in his own divine spiritual way, he has looked at some of our sad, angry, and he's just grabbed the corners of our mouths and just, hey, me and you. And there's just this joy that seems to happen. And see, it's God propping us up. And so for those of you who feel like, man, I feel stuck, I feel like things aren't working, God knows. God's going to take care of you. God is going to prop you up. He is not going to cut you off. He is going to lift your head. He is going to remove you from those situations that you're drowning in so you can flourish, because the fruit is for his glory. He wants us in that place. But in the same text, so we got propped, that's our first P. He says in verse 2, he lifts, we're changing it, we're going for a better word here. He lifts up every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. And he, what's the next word? Prunes. Prunes. Anyone enjoy pruning? It's good when it's happening to the plant. It's not good when it's happening to you. I remember sitting on the back deck in Tennessee, and the guys behind us were moving, and his son is back there just hacking away at a bush. And then I hear his dad like scream at him. You know how there's like a scolding, and then there's like the whole neighborhood's on alert, like, whoa. And like he is just screaming at his son. He said, "Hey, I told you to prune it, not kill it." And he took this flourishing bush and took it down to just this little nub. Now, they were prepping their house to sell. They sold. They moved out. Guess what happened to that bush the following year after they were gone? Never looked better. Just took off. You know, see, some of us are like, "Lord, I will submit myself to a haircut." And he's like, "No, sorry. Going to hack you down. Going to hack you down." See, what I did is I gave you the good news about getting propped up. Like, oh, that's nice. And he's going to cut you back. Like, oh, yeah. And some of us, we're going to wonder, why does it feel like when things are going well, I get knocked flat, I get knocked down, I get beat up? Because he's pruning us for our greater glory. He is pruning us to put us in this position where we can honestly grow. Every time I think of pruning, I immediately think of James chapter 1. I'm going to read it to you real quick here. In James chapter 1, he says, "Dear brothers and sisters," these are the children of the Father, the vine dresser. "Dear brothers and sisters, when trouble comes your way," you hear those shears? It's the trouble of life, it's coming. "When troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity." It doesn't say to hide. It doesn't say to run away. It doesn't say to gulp. When you hear those pruning shears come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If I were to just go around the room and say, "Hey, how has the Lord pruned you?" Some of you are going to talk about relational woes. Some of you are going to talk about health woes. Some of you are going to talk, listen, no plant in the middle of pruning goes, "This is fantastic." Pruning hurts. Pruning's hard. And the hardest part about pruning, and let me explain this, is sometimes what gets cut off is by all accounts something good. Are you with me here? if you really want to prune something, sometimes you have to cut off the good to get to what's greater. And in our lives, you are going to say, why would a good God do this? Because he knows what is greater. He knows what you're going through. And he knows that there is more to come through this. Okay? And so when pruning happens, I'm going to tell you this, abide. What does abide mean? We'll get to it second half, okay? When pruning happens, when there's part of you that's like, I just want to give up, why don't you just take those shears all the way to the root and just snap it off? The good Lord's like, I will prop you. Don't worry. I got you. We're in this together. And I will tell you this, some of us, we need pruned because we have gotten full of ourselves and forgotten we need to be full of the Spirit. And I've heard people like, hey, I got fired. And in the back of my mind, I went, good. But my face said, oh, I'm sorry, man. That's too bad. And the Lord knows. The Lord works through these things. All right. So that second P is pruned. Those of you that joined us for Connections, our time in the Word before we gather, some of us were telling stories about a journey or a way we went on. You know what is not a fun story to hear? If the question was, what's a journey you've been on or somewhere you traveled? You know what's not a fun travel story? Well, we got there at the airport on time. We flew out. Everything was fine. We had a good time, and then we flew back, and now we're here. The best stories, come on, for those of you that were in Connections, you immediately went to all the problems. You immediately shared all the, Raven and Bobby are laughing because they're like, well, let us tell you a story. But here's the thing, the best stories, it's always about the burdens, it's about the hardships, it's about the, has anyone told you their story about Disney and then they go, Arr, and they tell you the groans? It makes a good story, and here's the thing. The good Lord knows, and this is a truth we learned in Malawi, every bump is a blessing. Every bump's a blessing. And as he prunes us, as he takes us through these struggles, he is doing it for our greater good. You guys, listen, you have had days where everything went right and you have no recollection of them. And you had days where everything went terrible and you remember them vividly. And the good Lord is working with you and me. And sometimes he takes us through these pruning processes for our good, for our growth. And some of you say, I don't like it, I don't want to do it. And he's doing it for you so you'll hold on to his hand. You're the child that you needed a leash, okay? And he is pruning you so you will stay close. And I will tell you this, sometimes God's children, to be able to stay close to their father, need tripped up, need to fall flat. And so when they feel those bruises, when they feel those pains, what a great example, Gabe. They come crying in the midst of prayer. I mean, that's where the Lord wants us. All right, jumping forward. Here we go in verse 5. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not abide in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. Some would say verse 6 is repeating verse 2. It is not. There is a clear difference. Anyone who does not abide, those in verse 2 are abiding. That's why it cringed me to think of them being cut off. But here it's those that are saying, I don't want to abide. I don't want to be connected. I do not want to remain with you, Jesus. He says, I'll let you go your way. Not a single person is going to be in God's glorious kingdom to come and saying, I just lucked in here. I tried not to get here. I said, I don't want to go. See, the Lord opens up the avenue to a relationship with him through the cross. And he invites all of us in. And he is not going to nab a single one of you by the neck and taking you relenting and trying to avoid him. Those that are in the kingdom because they say, I want to be with you. And those that are not at the kingdom because they say, I don't want anything to do with you, Lord. This is our God who honors our choices. And the beautiful thing is, we don't have to choose the function of making fruit. We're just called to abide. And out of abiding, we get our third P, you produce fruit. We've got producing fruit, pruning, and being propped up. And just remember this, those that don't abide, they're thrown aside. Sounds good. Have any of you ever been on the receiving end of someone that came up to you and said, hey, the Lord put it in my heart to give you this hug? And then they just kind of wrap your arms up. Anyone ever been on the receiving end of one of those? Okay, getting some nods here. Second question. Was it the Lord propping you up or pruning you? Because some of you are like, this is the hug I need in this moment. And some of you are like, get away from me. You get that in one reaction, same reaction. Someone's like, the Lord just kind of tells me you need this hug. And some of you, that's exactly what I needed, Lord. Thank you for propping me up. And some of you are like, can't punch people in church. It's the same reaction, and depending on where you're at, the Lord is propping you or pruning you. You see that? Isn't that interesting how that goes? Have you ever had someone reach out to you, maybe it's by text or something, and in that moment they were propping you up? Have you ever had someone reach out to you and go, hey, I was just thinking of you, wanted to pray for you, and you leave me alone. I'm running my own reckless route. Leave me alone. You know, the same reaction. The Lord can be propping you. The Lord could be pruning you. This is how our good Lord works. And hey, don't ignore the Spirit's call to reach out to someone, to check in on someone. When someone just happens to come to your mind, you go, I don't know why I'm thinking of them. There's probably a reason. You can find out later whether you prop them up or prune them down. But check in on them. See how they're doing. And I need to jump into this real quick. From Galatians 5, when we're talking about abiding and it produces fruit, I don't know if you guys can read that text. Sorry for my color choice there. I picked a grapey color. But Galatians 5 tells us, and some of you're going to start singing the song as we go through this, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I want you to take the visual of that cluster of grapes and connect it to Galatians 5. And here's why. When you go out to a vine, do the grapes show up one by one? They're a cluster of one. You're not going to find an individual love grape, an individual peace grape, an individual patience grape. It's a cluster. Okay? What we need to understand is the fruit of the Spirit is a cluster, one cluster of fruit shown individually through love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And the reason this needs to be said is if you are in relationship with the Lord, you have all the fruit. Some may be better than others. I like this visual because if you look closely, one of those grapes almost looks like a raisin. And this is your guy's example because some of you are like, I'm in love, joy, peace, but man, my self-control is kind of like a raisin. It's a little bit of a struggle. Okay, but it's all there as one cluster. Here's the thing. You want your cluster to grow, get closer. You want that cluster of fruit to grow, get closer. Be in touch with the Spirit. And one thing I need to say before we go on. If you have a problem with peace, if you always kind of feel out of sorts, discontent, just the news cycle, someone at work says, hey, we need to talk. And all those things kind of throw you out of peace, just those little comments. That's not a peace problem. If you have a problem with patience, if you are someone quick to snap, if you are someone that I will give you 2 seconds and then you cut them off halfway through. Like if patience is a problem for you, that's not a patience problem. Pick whichever one you want up here. You say, I'm pretty good at them, but man, I got a kindness problem. Well, you jerk. That's not a kindness problem. Whatever fruit of the Spirit you struggle with or you lack with, it's an abiding problem. Look, those of you that lack patience, it's not a patience problem. And you're the ones thinking, hurry up. Those of you that lack peace, it's not a peace problem. Some of you, by nature, you lack joy. Well, it's not a joy problem. Some of you, your joy is a raisin. The Lord will lift you up. It's an abiding problem. And as we come closer, as we get in connection with the Lord, things tend to go better. The fruit tends to shine. I will tell you, if you focus on your patience, you are not going to gain patience. If you try your hardest to be more at peace, you are going to be more frazzled, not more at peace. You know, we handle these things by abiding, by coming closer. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted. Some of you just, huh? What? Hold on to that. That's exciting. Anything I ask will be granted. Hold on to that one for a second. When you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. Moving on to verse 9. I have loved you even as the Father's loved me. Remain. Abide in my love. When you obey my commandments, you abide in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. A little bit more text before we get to the main point here. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I've loved you. We're hearing it for a second time in the text. Verse 13, there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends since I have told you everything the Father told me. The definition of abiding in Jesus is, I want to put it in one word. It's friendship. It's friendship. See, here's the thing. When we are a friend with someone, we'll interact with them. We'll enjoy their presence. We'll want to spend time with them. You know, friends are a special bond. They go out of their way to do things together. I was watching 3 hilarious friends during communion. Nigel, Wes, and Jeremiah. We had the great idea that they would sit with our high school seniors this morning. And so when it came time for communion, like, all bets are off. What are they going to do? And as they come run into the table, listen, the table is above eye level for them. And they've just got the biggest grins, the biggest smiles. And the 3 of them are like, yes. Some of you are like, no. You remember, your hands would get smacked when you were a young child. But the 3 of them just, ah. And then I watched as some adults swooped in real quick and went, hey guys, what you doing? They're like, yeah, Lord's Supper. Like, they got it. We just went through Easter Fest. We talked about these things. And you see, I see Jeremiah saying this while chewing the bread. It's the body. And I see Nigel just with this big grin. And Wes is just as excited. He's like, I think I could get 2 cups. I got 2 hands. And there's this friendship. And here's why I'm bringing this up. Some of you guys, if I were to say mention a friend, I'd say, how did that friendship begin? You'd be like, I have no idea. It's just always been there. And it's awesome to see those 3. When they get older, like, how'd your friendship begin? Like, oh, we have no idea. But they're growing in faith. And listen, some of you are going to say, oh, we shouldn't let them near the table. They're not in the right form. None of us are. Are you with me here? None of us are there. There's always, for every single one of us, going to be a layer of reverence we are not at yet, and a layer of recognition of ourselves we're not at yet. And every single one of us is a wide-eyed, smiling child when we come to that table. God loves us. And I just love seeing those of you that walk with your kids through and say, hey, this is what this is. But here's the reason I talk about those 3. If we're to tell them in 10 years, like, how'd you guys become friends? I'm like, I have no idea. But some of us, we've had the benefit midlife where you've made some friends. You know, some of you, if I say, how did you get to know that friend? You could tell me exactly what it was. I want to tell you about my friend Steve for a second. I know the exact moment we became friends, like to a T. Weirdly enough, I'm flipping through the TV channels. This is back when we lived in Tennessee, Nashville area. And on the public television show, they are showing the library gathering, like story time. Why this is on TV for anyone to watch, I have no idea. But I'm at home, and I'm like, well, that shouldn't be on TV. It sure is. It's like you're just zoomed right in to the library, and this lady's reading a story. But the way the camera is, you could see a couple of the families there. And I recognize a guy I've never talked to at church and his little daughter. I'm like, huh. And I watched the story time, and he's trying to hold his daughter down. She's kind of calling on him. And so the following Sunday, I go up to him. We have never talked before other than hey, I recognize you're alive. Like, no conversation. I go up and I was like, man, story time was a killer the other day. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, man, good on you keeping a hold of Macy. And he's like, yeah. I am just confusing him to a T. And I'm telling him everything that happened during story time. And you could see his brain just hurting. He's like, how does he know all these things? He was not there. And like, it's just hurting him. And I finally go, dude, it was on TV. I watched it. And then all of a sudden he just, He's like, wait, you mean that little? I was like, yes, dude. They filmed the whole thing and I watched it live in my house. He's like, that's really like an invasion of privacy. I was like, I know. I loved it. Within 10 minutes later of just, this is our first conversation, no joke, his wife says to my wife, she is receptive, you don't offer these things to me. She goes, hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? And I was like, anything. Yeah. And they said, hey, you guys want to go to Gatlinburg? Like, that's a huge ask within the first 10 minutes. Hey, you guys want to go 3 hours away and spend the weekend with us? I was like, I'm dumb enough to say, yes, let's do it. And so we go, within a first 10-minute conversation, we're invited to spend the weekend. We go and we form some deep friendships. We have a great time. And I need to say this for a second. There is a point in a friendship when you can speak about anything and everything under the sun. There is no topic that's taboo. You guys understand this? You are friendly with some people, and then you have friends. And anything and everything can be said under the sun. Okay? I remember one Sunday, and I looked Steve in the eye, and I said, this is what I said. I said, Steve, your shirt is too tight. I wouldn't have said that to anybody else. Anyone else, I'd be like, ew. But Steve's a friend, so I just straight up tell him. I said, Steve, your shirt is too tight. And he goes, I know, but Emily likes it. Emily's his wife, okay. Emily likes it. I was like, dude, don't ever wear it again. This gets better. And we go through this. That's what friends are. Friends speak truth to each other. Like, you tell each other. You call each other out. Anyway, we're conversation after conversation, and at some point he's like, man, I've got this pain going from my neck down to my shoulder. I was like, I got you. And so I go behind him, and I grab his elbows. I just kind of move them together like this. Okay, you guys know what's about to happen? Listen, the buttons didn't pop. The shirt just tore. And there we are in the sanctuary of the Lord's temple, and Steve's hair's poking out, and I'm like, I don't know whether to sorry or say this is awesome. I told you, dude. And he's just like, dude. And I was like, I told you it was too tight, man. And that's friends. Guess what? Did he make me buy him a shirt? Did he rib on me? No, we're friends. We laughed about it. You know, that's how friends are. Who's our friend? It's Jesus. I'm wearing a friend shirt right now, by the way. Ernie one day goes, hey, I think you should wear this shirt. It doesn't fit me anymore. And then Harriet goes, man, Rob, it looks so much better on you. I'm just kidding. She didn't say that. But with friends, there's this special relationship that you can say the absolute meanest thing to them, and they'll take it in a friendly way. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, a friend can see you, grab you, and pull you out of the worst struggle and the worst hole you've ever been in. Do you know a friend is a person you can call at any single time and they won't be upset with you? You know, here's the thing. We're friendly with some people, but there's friends we have. You call them at 3, 4 a.m. Like, what's up? I mean, maybe a little bit more groggy. What's up? But there's this relationship where you can call upon a friend at any time. Are you guys seeing the connection here when it comes to abiding? I'm going to go right here. Jesus says, I am the vine. And when we abide, he says, you're my friend. Guys, how awesome does that feel? We're friends. And sometimes he looks at you and he goes, hey, that shirt's way too tight on you. You go, okay. And sometimes he prunes you and just rips some things on you that need ripped. And sometimes he looks at you when you're low and he grabs you by the hand because he's that kind of friend. He's that friend that you can laugh with, you can cry with, and you can care for. You know, I read out of James 1 earlier. James 4:4 says, friendship with the world makes an enemy of God. You catching that? But to obey Jesus, to see his way, he said, hey, we're friends. And I want you to think of your relationships right now. Listen, some of our relationships, they're based upon a time and place. You know, we have a friend, maybe they're during that occupation. For the 10 years we worked at a certain place where we moved and the friendship faded. Some of you, relationships are based on where you lived at a certain time. You've moved in different places. I cannot be as close to friends that I had in Tennessee because they're in Tennessee, okay? And I get to be closer with some of you here, and some of that changes, but Jesus remains. Jesus abides. Jesus is the friend that is always there. And as we come to build into this relationship with him, yes, we come humbly. Yes, we come repentant. Yes, we come knowing he is Lord, he is Savior, he is King. Does he leave us in that place? He grabs us. He says, come on, friend. Come on, friend. And a lot of times we think of this concept of following Jesus, and I want to just tilt this for a second. Because there's absolutely, follow Jesus. How far away is he while you're following him? Because I'll tell you this, I don't walk behind my friends, I walk alongside them. And we're in conversation, we're laughing about the things around us. And when Jesus says, hey, you're my friend, that doesn't mean lag behind, that doesn't mean fall behind, that means walk in step with him. How close in step? I don't know. Where's the Spirit go? Within. And to be constantly walking with him. Jesus says this. He says, you didn't choose me. I chose you. And that is the best friendship ever. Jesus came out to the playground on kindergarten and goes, I want that kid. We're going to be friends. I want you. And he says, I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit so that the Father will give you whatever you ask for using my name. Let me explain this. Prayer is not an ATM. Prayer is an attentive friend. If I call up some of my friends and say, hey man, will you give me this? They're like, oh yeah. But if I call up my friends and ask for something that I know is going to be to my detriment or they know is going to be to my detriment, my friends are good enough to go, no dude, no. He's the same one as we pray to. If we ask for something that's going to be harmful to us, hurt us, he's going to say, no. Jesus is the attentive friend. And then he's going to lay his friendship burden upon us. You guys ready for this burden of a friendship with Jesus? Love each other. I'm your friend. I want to walk with you. I want to be with you. And as you are looking out upon this world, I want you to love people. I want you to be there for them. I want you to care for them. And I want to give you a visual of abide that I hope will stick with you. Jesus says, you're my friend. I chose you to love. And when you think of that word remain in John 15, when you think of that word abide, I want you to think friendship. I want you to think that connection of a good friend. And we entered into this talking about introductions. Hey, who are you? I want to give you a new one. I'm a friend of Jesus. Hey, I'm Rob, and I'm a friend of Jesus. Feels weird, doesn't it? We're going to try this out. You don't have to say your name, but I want you guys just to repeat after me. You're a friend of Jesus. Can you guys say, I am a friend of Jesus? You guys ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And there's some of you right now that you struggle to believe it, and the Lord's going to prop you up, and he's going to put a smile on your face this week, and the phrase is going to come out of your mouth again, and you're going to smile and go, man, I'm a friend of Jesus. And some of you are going to get some nefarious, fun word, nefarious friends hacked apart this week. You're going to get some friends that want to drag you away into the world, wants to drag you into enemy territory, and the Lord is going to prune them this week because of what you just said. You said, I am a friend of Jesus, and he's going to come with a holy hacksaw, and he's going to remove some stuff this week. And in the middle of it, you got to go, I'm a friend of Jesus. I'm a friend of Jesus. I want to invite the friends of Jesus right now. We're going to get into a time of worship. If you guys will go ahead and stand. And as they are coming up, I want to tell you this. If it's a struggle to believe you're a friend of Jesus, we want to pray with you. We want to help you connect into that relationship because what I see is a lot of friends of Jesus, and I don't see anyone with a shirt too tight.